Hello, everyone, and welcome to our first Startup Women Industry Roundtable of the year of 2026, Women in STEM. My name is Amanda Logan, and I am your Programs Officer for Startup Women at Startup Canada. To begin, I would like to take a moment to acknowledge the land on which I am today. It is located on the unceded and traditional territories of the Algonquin Anishinaabe, also known as Ottawa. As we are a national organization, I would also like to acknowledge with respect the diverse histories and cultures of all Indigenous peoples. I encourage you to take a moment to acknowledge the traditional territory that you are residing on today. Startup Canada is a national nonprofit that is the gateway to Canada's entrepreneurial ecosystem. We're here to connect entrepreneurs with the support, community, and tools they need to build a successful business in Canada. Startup Women is an annual program offering support to early-stage women identifying entrepreneurs across Canada through topic-focused webinars, industry roundtables like today, and meetings with startup women leaders. These bi-monthly industry roundtables will provide attendees with a deeper understanding of trends and best practices in their sector, and attendees will leave with actionable takeaways and resources that they can implement into their business. I would also like to thank our program partners, UPS and Scotiabank, and our ecosystem partner, WEOC, and our community partners. We'll add the full list into the Zoom chat. Today's session is for women in STEM, and we're very excited to be diving into this discussion. You will see here, we're going to add a schedule of today's events on screen. And as you can see, we'll start off with a round of speed introductions from each of you attendees. You can either do this on camera or in the chat. And then next, we'll hear 3 speaker intros from our guest speakers, followed by about approximately 50 minutes of a Q&A with our 3 speakers. The last part of today's session will be a networking breakout room where everyone will get the chance to connect with 2 to 3 fellow attendees and speakers, and some of the speakers will be placed in these rooms with you. We have about 35 minutes carved out for the breakout rooms. We'll do 3 rounds of them at 10 to 12 minutes each. Okay, so to start off, we're going to do attendee introductions. So if your camera is on, I'm going to assume that you're comfortable with me having you introduce yourself out loud. If you would prefer, you can introduce yourself in the chat. You are welcome to share your LinkedIn or business social media pages, but please note you are in no way obligated to share any personal contact information. Please only share what you are comfortable with being public. Okay, let's get started with attendee intros. Most people have their camera off, but I do see Samantha on my screen. So Samantha, can I invite you to introduce yourself?
Yeah, good morning. Samantha Stelmachuk. I'm joining from Edmonton, Alberta, or in that close area. And I was actually 25 years with IBM Canada, and last year on a new career path due to organizational change. So really, I have a product idea that I'm excited about and looking at how can I, become an entrepreneur after 25 years of corporate and executive leadership, and now looking at how can I make maybe my own company and my own product from that.
Fantastic. I love that. Thank you for introducing yourself. Um, would anyone else like to introduce themselves out loud online? You can just turn on your camera and I'll know to call on you. Maybe I'll pass it over to Tatiana. You could introduce yourself and your work with Startup Canada.
Yeah, thank you so much, Amanda. Hello, everyone. My name is Tatiana. I'm an administrative officer at the Startup Canada. I'm actually a slash newcomer as well because I just recently, only a couple years as I'm living in Canada, which is great. I'm very excited about today's meeting and today's guest, especially because I've been working quite a while in the STEM field before, so I know how is it important to develop even your skills and knowledges in these areas, and especially now in the nowadays and in the AI technology area. So I'm very excited about this meeting, and yeah, have a nice meeting to everyone.
Thanks, Tatiana. I'll pass it over to Yonique if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Unique Walgrove. I'm the founder of FTRF. I live in Sarnia, Ontario. I'm just in the startup stages, just here to get insight.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Nice to meet you. I'll pass it to Katie.
Hi all, great to be here today. I'm Katie Leclerc. I'm the executive director with SheBoot. SheBoot supports women-led tech companies to get investment ready. We also invest in companies annually, so 3 companies, $300,000, and Jennifer will be able to speak more to that. Jennifer's a member of the panel, Jennifer Francis, our chair. Just happy to be here, and I'll drop in. I realized I didn't follow the trend in dropping my LinkedIn, so I'll make sure to do that, and love to connect with you all.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Katie. I'll pass it over to Wendy. Wendy, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sorry, I just didn't click the right unmute button.
No, that's okay. I thought you
Wendy.
froze for a second.
Yeah. Wendy, I'm in Calgary. I have a new idea for a road trip app for kids, and I'm just at the beginning stages, still trying to figure out how to make it work. How to I need to collect more information so that I can attract investors. But part of the journey is to join groups like this and get some insight. So I'm hoping to learn a lot from you all today.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Just a reminder, if anyone wants to introduce themselves out loud, please turn on your camera. Otherwise, you are welcome to introduce yourself in the chat. And I'll pass it over to Lou.
Oh, hi everyone. I'm a startup founder as well here. I'm based in Ottawa. So we're building a intelligent marketing operator drives by AI that supports small businesses or brands that want to drive attractions through social media. So we provide strategies, copywriting, and schedules, and help them achieve professional and consistent brand. So we're currently at the beta version, and we're launching next week. And I've seen many familiar faces here, like Katie and Jennifer. Yeah, nice to meet everyone.
Nice to meet you. Thank you. Next on my screen is Sully. Sorry if I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly.
Hi, yes, my name is Suli Marcela. I am the CEO and founder of DatSor. With DatSor, I create an AI agent that is able to close sales through WhatsApp, Instagram, and web chat.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing. I'll now invite Amy to introduce themselves. Oh, maybe not. I think I just lost her. Okay, perfect. All right. Well, I think that's everyone I see on screen who is available to introduce themselves. Again, if you want to introduce yourself in the chat, please feel free to. We do encourage you to ask questions following our speaker intros, and you can do this either by typing your question into the chat or using the raise hand function. If you use the raise hand function, then we'll call on you to ask your question out loud. So without further ado, I'm honored to introduce our speakers today. Joining us, we have Siobhan Chen, who I may have just lost Siobhan. Oh, there she is. Perfect. Joining us from somewhere a lot hotter than where I am in Ottawa. Siobhan is the founder and CEO of FlixFX. We also have Adi Manchanda, Maritimes chapter lead of Women in Tech Canada. And we are joined by Jennifer Francis, co-founder of SheBoot. So to start things off, I'm going to pass the mic over to Siobhan to tell us her story. Awesome. Siobhan, would you like to give us a little bit of a brief on your story and your background in FlixFX? Okay, I think she might be frozen right now, so I'm going to pass it over to Addie first, then we'll loop back to Siobhan.
No worries. Thank you, Amanda. Hi, everyone. Really glad to be here. Adi Manchanda. I'm the data and analytics consultant working with Happiest Minds. And I'm not here for that, but I'll come to my after day job in a while. In simple terms, what I really do is I help organizations make better decisions with their data. Right now, I think all of us, we are all sitting on landmine of information, customer behavior. And I think a lot of, you entrepreneurs are going to appreciate that, right? All the uh, signals, market signals, financial information, getting from your customers, behaviors, operations, right? So my job is primarily to help dig into that information, bring clarity, help understand what matters, what to prioritize, what actions to actually take to move that revenue needle from point A to point B. And I've been doing that since last 16 years now. I started my career back in India, wherein I had, spent time building my technical foundations. I've worked with various startups, large enterprises, consulting firms. I think what really helped me is in that time, I've been a customer, I've been a vendor, I've been a consultant, I've been a product seller. So that has really given me a lot of different perspectives. I think I appreciate that I know, I understand how, decisions are made on different side of the tables, what trade-offs leaders actually care about, what is driving really impact, or what is just something that looks good on presentations. 8 years ago, I moved to Canada. I've spent 3 years in Nova Scotia Power acting as their data strategy lead. Then I joined the Microsoft team as a cloud solution architect, where I was partnering with the enterprise customers across Canada, helping them realize business value from their technology investments. And today I'm the principal consultant back in, what I love doing as a data and AI evangelist role. It's a cool title I've put on myself just because it keeps me, how do I say it? It doesn't tag me to a particular profile. It's just, keeps it open. Anytime there is a data and AI involved, I just put on that hat and I'm just fronting customers advocating for that. I'm also a data coach, so I do spend a lot of time mentoring interns and co-ops, making career in analytics feel more approachable, helping them hone their skills, that kind of a stuff. So a lot of, fresh pass outs of a college, they work as a part of my team, they work as a part of customer team, but very closely working with them. And outside of this, my day job, I lead the Women in Tech Canada Maritimes chapter. It's a fairly new chapter. I have been volunteering with the Women in Tech organization since quite a while now. But Atlantic Canada, that's home. That's my community. So this was primarily an opportunity for me to give back, to the community where I gained so much in last 8 years, not just on a professional side, but on a personal side as well. So Women in Tech is primarily that initiative supporting women navigate their path in this ecosystem. Lot of focus on helping retain the local talent here in Atlantic Canada, build strong community with strong intentions, and that's what I'm trying to do. And other than work, because believe me, that's not all I do. I am a good cook. So my friends are very surprised when after a long day, they find me in the kitchen chopping a lot of vegetables. I read a lot. In fact, I'm still trying to figure out my reading pattern because my books are you're gonna see a wide variety from fiction to horror to fantasy to astrology to alternate healing to crystals and numerology. So yeah, I think anything and everything that kind of excites me or that I'm in a mood to switch on to. So that's me. That's all about me. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Adi. Thank you for sharing. I'll pass it over to Jennifer to introduce yourself and tell us a bit about your story and Sheboot.
Sure. Thank you for that, Amanda. And so I had a 30-year plus career in the technology industry. I was an executive at a startup and Cognos, both of which were acquired by IBM. So I was also at IBM for a few years. So I've worked at everything from 20 people at Watchfire when I started there to 100,000 people at IBM, or 400,000 people, whatever it was at IBM. When I left IBM, I decided to get involved in angel investing to help rebuild the tech industry in Ottawa, which had gone through a few ups and downs over the decades. And so I joined Capital Angel Network. I'm currently the chair of Capital Angel Network. And I was the second woman to join that angel group. It was a primarily male tech, which, kind of matched my career, being primarily male tech. And also noticed that most of the startups pitching were male founders of startups. And about a year later, Julia Elvidge joined Capital Angel Network. She was the third woman into the group. And I will tell you, when you're in a group of 40 or 50 men, 2 or 3 women does not completely change the dynamics of the group. So we decided to get more deliberate about increasing the number of women angels, and partnered up with Sonia Shorey, who is now the CEO of Invest Ottawa, and was looking at how we increase the number of women founders into Invest Ottawa, as the programs were at the time. So this was 7 or 8 years ago. The programs were primarily taken advantage of, wrong wording, but leveraged by male founders. And we knew that there were more women founders around, but they were not showing up to the programs. So we started working with Invest Ottawa, an initiative to increase the number of women founders coming into the Invest Ottawa programs from the Ottawa region. And we started working on programs to increase the number of angels coming into Capital Angel Network, as the research at the time, and I will tell you it has been proven true, is the more women you have on the investing side of the table and the more women you have on the mentoring side and running programs, the more women founders will come out and will successfully get investment and will successfully grow their business. And I'll just put a little aside. There was a study done by Conference Board of Canada, which they do mostly economic reporting in Canada, on the state of women founders. And I don't know if any of you would be shocked to learn that 6 years ago, women founders were far more likely to bootstrap their companies than male founders. But it wasn't necessarily because women founders really wanted to bootstrap. It was that access to funding was much more difficult for women founders. So Julia, Sonia, and I decided to co-found SheBoot, which is a program for women founders. It's an investment-ready boot camp. And we're looking at the two sides of the issue. One is working with the women founders to help them with everything that they need to be able to successfully get investment from angels. But also looking at the other side of the pipeline, which is women angels. So when we started the program in 2020, we were originally going to do it as an in-person program primarily for Eastern Ontario, but COVID hit, so we moved to online and open it up to people that were beyond driving distance, since we were online. And by 2022, we had gone national, and so we support founders across the country. But we also bring in angel investors. So we started with 10 women angels, which was pretty much everyone we knew that we could rope into this in 2020, and $100,000 to the top company. And we're now at 30 women angels, $300,000 in investment prizes for the top companies in the SheBoot program. And we take the founders through everything that they need in order to prepare for investment. So that's getting your data room ready, getting your pitch ready, relentless pitch practice. So every week of the program, you're practicing your pitches, you're getting feedback. It is a women supporting women program. So the workshops are run by women. We have women angels. We have women coaches, women experts on finance and legal. But we do have men involved in the program, primarily around the pitch practice. And that is because in the real world, you will be pitching to men. And in the real world, pitching to men and pitching to women is not actually the same. So we feel it's very important that you get practice doing both. And we work through the legal, the financial, the pitch, everything you need for your business. We also discuss how to handle questions, and particularly how to handle difficult questions, which can be difficult because you're not a technical founder and you're expected to know things around the technical side of the business, or you are a technical founder and you're expected to know things around the financial and business side of the business. So they can be difficult for that reason because they're out of your sort of comfort zone. But also difficult questions because they're just different. Like men are more likely to ask questions about the risks to your business. If you're a woman, if it's a male founder, they are more likely to ask questions about the opportunity side of your business. So how you handle those. And then there's just the straight inappropriate questions. How are you handling your kids? Things like that you do have to manage, which rarely get asked of male founders, but frequently get asked of female founders. So that's the SheBoot program that we take you through. And then for myself, I'm still an angel investor with Capital Angel Network. So we invest in all kinds of different opportunities, but I will tell you, when I read the studies that putting more women on the angel side of the table changed things for women founders, Capital Angel Network, we probably saw a woman founder maybe once a year, one meeting a year. We'd have a woman founder show up when I first joined the group. And in 2025, 69% of our new investments were women-led companies. And that's for all of the angels. This is the men and the women, 69% of our investments. So, it really does work. And when you get enough women in the room, it actually changes the culture. So that's been great to see that playing out, and looking to see if we can reproduce that across the country, and just change the game for everybody. And following on Addie's, what do I do in my spare time? I'm not particularly fond of chopping vegetables. But I do spend a lot of time in the winter on cross-country skis in Gatineau Park. We have this fabulous playground just outside of Ottawa. It's a 20-minute drive from my house. So that's my winter activity. And in the summer, I cycle in Gatineau Park and around. And my least favorite months are March and November because they're generally not great for skiing and they're generally cold and wet for cycling. So then you have to find things to do inside the house. And that's me. Thanks.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing, Jennifer. The success and story of SheBoot is just incredible. Okay, and now I will pass it over to Siobhan to introduce herself and tell us a little about FlixFX.
Yes, good morning, good afternoon, everybody, depending upon where you are. Again, I'm plugging in from sunny Jamaica. The sun just came out. I know that in Canada, there's a little bit of a weather shift. So I'm greeting you with all the sun from this beautiful country. My name is Siobhan Chin. I am 5-time certified industry leader and expert in fireworks, pyrotechnics, and Canada's first woman swarm drone pilot. We create words, images, logos in the sky, specifically QR codes. We like to say that drones are the medium, but data is a product. So we essentially are the advertising company that uses the sky as our billboard. We moved from fireworks into pyrotechnics and now specializing specifically in drone shows. So we're looking to shift the advertising industry on how it's perceived and how it's looked at and the impact that it can create, and really that it's measured in the future.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Siobhan. Alrighty. Okay, so now we're going to open it up for our panel discussion. For those who feel comfortable, we do encourage you to turn your cameras on for this portion. How this is going to work is we have a few prompt questions to start. However, we do encourage our participants to ask questions throughout the entire event. So you can do this either by raising your hand and we'll call on you, or you can pop your question into the chat and I'll read it out for you. So to start off, a question for all of our founders, and I think all of our panelists, and this was touched on in some of your intros, but I would love to just identify some unique challenges that you've faced as a woman in STEM, particularly in the startup ecosystem. So for any of our three panelists, whoever wanted to take that on first.
I'll jump in while my reception is great.
Okay.
For me, it's always been the regulatory issues and the legislation issues that when you're coming in, especially in the aviation and aerospace industry, there's a lot of red tape there. And Canada specifically is not proactive, we're reactive. So you'll get out there and you're in a blue ocean, and then all of a sudden there's rules and regulations. So that has been a major thing for me because it's constantly changing and you need to really stay ahead of that game in terms of how we're thinking about the future of mobility.
Interesting. Thank you for sharing. Addie or Jennifer, are there any unique challenges that you're seeing for STEM in the startup ecosystem?
I think I can, so the challenge primarily I see in terms of is visibility. And it's more to do with, as a woman in STEM, the entire focus and kind of an ingrained learning and conditioning has been about putting your 100% into your work. Your work is going to speak for itself, right? You're going to get recognized by it automatically. And during that entire focus on performance and timelines and deliveries, what I realized in so many years of my career that the people who have been growing, right, they were just not doing better work than me. They just exactly knew where to raise the hands, what are the right rooms to be in, which all golf party they need to be, part of the right drinking groups, partnering with the right people. And I think that has been my biggest challenge in STEM industry. I don't think I've honestly sought that out completely, although my mentors are helping me. I am very intentional now in terms of when I'm doing or working on an initiative, being vocal about it, sharing with my peers, sharing with my leaders in terms of the impact that's going to create. But I don't think being a woman like that comes naturally to a lot of us. And yeah, still a fighting battle, still trying to work on that. I think awareness is the first key. So being aware of that fact, knowing that's the effort that I need to put into. But yes, to me, that is still a very big challenge. Making sure, building that personal brand while you're working on it is something I think needs more work.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to add to that, pile on to that. I think, women tend to be very efficient time managers because you're generally, not always, but generally you're doing more at home than your partner. And so you're managing your time between your career and your family. and you're making priority choices to make sure you're doing a good job at work and, you know, your kids are thriving, or at least alive. Depends on what your standards are. And you know, your male counterparts are making different choices. And one of the things that I do say to women who are founding startups or further along in startups is networking is not actually an optional part of your job as CEO. And, you know, I know early in my career, when my kids were young, you know, it was a mistake I made in terms of, you know, you kind of opt out of the networking events and then, you know, it takes you a little longer to get that promotion because you've opted out of the networking events. But when you're CEO of a startup, it's not just the promotion that you're opting out of, you're opting out of funding. And that network that you build is really critical to being able to fund your startup. And so it's really not, you know, you need to be thinking of it as, you know, this is a core part of being a CEO, is building those networks so you can get that funding. And, you know, as a, you know, program founder, one of the things that we look at, which I feel is our responsibility, and I know at Invest Ottawa, a lot of work has gone into this as well, is the timing of networking events. You know, that they can't all be at 7 o'clock in the evening because, you know, it's just too hard to get to them. So we've made a lot of deliberate choices in Ottawa to move timing of events, and Sheboot we try and run in the middle of the day, so it's not too early in the west, not too late in the east. And in central Canada, it's in the middle of the day, because when we tried running it earlier, you know, the women were always late because you had to drop the kids off at school. So, you know, taking that reality into account, that, you know, many founders do have kids, they do have responsibilities. And, you know, if we're running a program, we need to think about that in our program design. But as the founder, you also have to think about it in terms of, this is a core part of my job as a CEO, is to build a network. And so I have to, in my choices and trade-offs, sometimes attend things.
Thank you for sharing that. I think that's a great call out, in that, you know, we get to build the world. You know, we can shift what this ecosystem looks like, right? And it takes leaders and advocates like yourself to notice things like that. Maybe a, you know, a networking session at the same time as soccer practice is not what's going to work out.
Yeah.
Siobhan.
Yeah, I just wanted to add on to that because I was doing a lot of networking last year, and it's really good to have that face value where, you know, when they see you and, you know, after a few times, you know, it's who are you again? And then they remember your name. But in addition to that, I used to go into networking, and my point was that everybody in the room, by the time I left there, they need to at least have remembered that they saw the fireworks and drones lady. And for me, it became I just made sure that, you know, I was a touch point. Hi, I'm the fireworks and drones lady. If you ever need fireworks and drones, please remember me. But it wasn't sustainable because I'd meet 100 people in the night, and, you know, they couldn't remember me and I couldn't remember them. Eventually, you know, we'd start to build. But what I learned was, if I go in there intentionally, especially if I know who's going to be in the room, the speakers or the people who are there, my goal now is just 3 people. Make 3 meaningful connections with people you could actually follow up with and actually build with. That has been my trick into going from being overwhelmed and can't leave the room to just, you know, okay, I found 3 people who make sense to what I'm trying to do.
I think that's a fantastic call out. Sometimes you think of yourself in the same way you think of marketing. Marketing, they say you have to see a product 4 to 5 times before you even consider purchasing it. And sometimes you have to think of yourself and networking in the same way. I mean, Siobhan, I think you're a great example. If you don't mind me using you as an example, as I'm familiar with you because you attended so many Startup Canada events last year. And you had great things to add to the conversation. So when it came time to find panelists for this event, I was like, I know the perfect woman, you know, and that's entirely from networking opportunities, right?
Exactly that prime example. So exactly. Thank you so much for that. reaching out to me for that. And I was like, oh yeah, Amanda, let's do it. And again, you never know who you're going to talk to in the room. So don't be afraid. Sometimes it's the person who you least expect to speak to that is actually the best person to speak to. So go into and all of these rooms with really an open mind. If you're a water cooler girl, stick to what you like, and the right people will kind of find you in that natural room, in that natural realm. And it's great too. Like I was at an event just last week, as a moderator, and there were so many people in the room who I've never met. So I also like going into rooms that, I've never met you. Now is our first touch point. So it's good to go into rooms where people know you, but it's also good to like, I like to, when I'm going into like, especially when there's a dinner setting, I want to go to a table where I don't know anybody. It gives you the best opportunity to now introduce yourself and understand who they are, as opposed to going in with your friend. Me and my friend, we need to be at two separate tables because we understand what we're there for and how can we spread it faster. Again, more tips.
Yeah, no, that's great. Thank you for sharing. Samantha.
I love all of those, and I feel all of those after years of heads down delivery. I moved to sales 3 years ago, and that was a big shift in just a whole go to market. But what I've realized as I start to look at entrepreneurship is you're everything, right? There's no, I don't like sales, I don't like this. It's you're covering it all. So it's really like that brand, the value, what do you bring? And so, like to Addie, I think it is just that self awareness, and we continue to grow, and we continue to try, and we continue to refine our message, and then hopefully that wins. I guess the challenge that I see quickly is, especially coming from corporate, I've grown in a team, right? So, and I'll always acknowledge that if I have gaps, or I've got to stretch to grow into an area. But I'm finding in entrepreneurship, it's very lonely because there's no team. So it's all you. That's new. I like teams. I don't know if anyone has advice on sort of the balancing, right? Because even for me, as I start to look at building a product, I can go some deep holes and doing wireframes and coming up with the perfect app. But if I'm not flexing branding and marketing and user groups, and then the product goes nowhere. So I feel for me, it's a bit of that balancing it all.
For sure. Yeah, no, that any of our panelists, do any of you have any advice on that balance? Because it is a lot on one person's shoulders, especially when you're starting something up off the ground and it's just you so far. Any advice on how to find that balance between growing your business, market research, and then also taking care of yourself and networking? Yeah, Siobhan.
For me, myself, like for a long time as a woman, believe that you couldn't be successful in all three, is you had to pick two. It's either you and your spouse, so your relationship, you had your children, or you had your career. Very rarely as women do we get all three right. Typically, if you're in a great relationship and your kids are great, your career sucks. If your kids are great, your relationship sucks, and and you only get two of the three. Very, very rarely do we find that unicorn lady that can master all three of these. I know I may sound crazy, but I'm just now getting to the reality where I can do it. Like I used to think it was an impossible task, but it can be done if you plan for yourself and then you're able to pour your overflow into everybody else. So you really have to keep your cup full so that you can help to pour into other cups. And that has really been, Samantha, a key for me, because sometimes Nikki's here in this meeting, like we'll walk through the door, we're yelling at the kids, and she sounds like me and I sound like her, and we're saying, wait a minute, like what's going on here? So it's a real thing that, as a parent, you have to come home, and sometimes you want to take off the entrepreneur hat, but to put on that parent hat, but sometimes you have to wear all three.
Thank you so
So
much for sharing.
my advice is for you, like right now, I'm hiding from everybody. I do that from time to time. I will take that time and just disappear. Phone's off, nobody can find me. And sometimes it's a day, sometimes it's an hour, but find whatever it is that you need that fills your cup back up. Like I have a whole list of things that make me happy. And on any given day, it can refer to this list. People can refer to this list. Do you want to make me happy? Do I need to make myself happy? And you need to have just those little things, whether it's a chocolate bar or a can of Coke or whatever it is, find the little things that make you happy and build upon.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing that advice and expertise, Siobhan. Laura, I see your hand up. I'll invite you to unmute and ask your question.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yes. Can you hear me, guys?
Yep.
Oh my God. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I'm here. I'm lost, ups and down, and let's see what happened and how it's doing and all the stuff. Hi, everybody. I'm so excited to be here. I'm so excited. So I'm the executive director of AI Networking Canada. I'm trying to build that awesome stuff to bring everybody in the same line to do things together. So, oh, oh, I'm so excited. And I have a lot of questions because this is my first time I'm jumping into nonprofit. It's a nonprofit, no? So I desperately need help. So if someone can help me and have a chat with me and talk about it. So now I have I'm developing so first of all, I'm in Spain. I came into Spain because I'm Spanish too. So I came to see my family. I'm nurse. I work as a nurse. I saw something pressure ulcers, if someone knows about it. So I say, okay, what is not a device who will be able to support staff to analyze better the wounds and so on. So I make a project proposal. I send it to was the chair of Canadian Research Department. He is in Alberta, I think. Anyway, I don't have my notes, so I apologize. But something like that. So I talked to him and he said, yeah, through the university, we can do things, but I'm not sure if it's good to go to university. So my thing is for good, AI for good. So my goal is this, to help. So it's okay. The people know how to automation, sorry, automations and more stuff, implementing in companies, organizations, stuff like that. Okay, everybody is doing this, but what we really actually do something with that AI power. So this is my project right now, and I will be more than happy to someone to talk with. And so I'm desperate. In other words, I need help. Girls, I
Thank
need
you.
help.
Thank you, Laura. Thank you for
And I
sharing.
think I can build something great. AI Network in Canada. This is my nonprofit. It's, I think the name it's saying, it's just saying. Yeah.
Sorry,
Just
Siobhan, I
if you
think
drop your LinkedIn into the chat, and at least that way people can follow you and you can network and see if that works. Oh,
yeah, I drop it. I
can you hear me?
will drop it again.
Perfect. Sorry, Siobhan, you got
There you
a little
go.
choppy there, but thank you for saying that. Laura, yeah, if you want to share your contact information in the chat, that's great. As well, our networking rooms that will happen later in this event will be a great opportunity where you could maybe consult some other attendees or some of our speakers and ask some of those more personal to your business questions. I'll
Yes.
pass it over to Melissa.
Thank you.
Hi guys. Couple comments. First of all, Laura, I sent you a note, and I wrote in the chat as well. I'm actually just a newly joined ambassador to We Do Canada, which some of you may or may not be familiar with, but our main initiative is to provide scholarships to up-and-coming entrepreneurs in Canada. And our summit this year is taking place in November, and it's all oriented around AI and automation. And so I think it would be great for us to connect. Would love everybody's input on it. We're looking for supporters from everything from volunteers to speakers to fireside chats to everything. So that isn't supposed to be a sales pitch. It's supposed to be a, Laura, here, great. You made one connection. To Siobhan's point, pick 3. Maybe that's one that you can look forward to today. And on that note, actually, my question to the panel is if you were giving advice to a startup, to an individual really at an early stage, maybe even into sort of a Series A, I'm wondering what 3 tools are, and you can define tool however you'd like. 3 tools are that you say are mandatory that they have to have, whether that's a website or a lawyer or whatever the case may be. What would some of those pieces be? Siobhan, you're frothing at the bit there. I'd love to hear your input.
Yeah, for me, it's definitely market research. You have to really do that research to make sure that there's a fit and there's a need. Whether you do that through students, you do that through AI, you do that online market research, you need to really gather that data. As we're all talking about, data is so important. And again, you need to have some kind of an AI component to really take you in. A lawyer and an accountant are top of mind, but I would say those 2 things first.
Helpful. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll actually pile on to that.
Sorry to interrupt. I wrote a book. This is my book. Before and after I build your empire, girls. Practical guides for entrepreneurs. Yes, this is my first dream when I was young. Technology. I say, yes, it's coming. So I was following AI. I end up writing this book. It's a good one for people who wondering, okay, what is this about the AI and how come? And more than this, it's about the implication in our society and future and stuff like that. And if someone will, so now will be in 2027, the big shock, no employment. So you have to do something. Entrepreneurs, yes, good. So I will put the link. It's on Amazon, my book. I'm so excited. Oh my gosh. Sorry, I apologize.
Thank you, Laura. Yeah, definitely share the link to your book in the chat. I think that could be a great resource. Adi, did you want to share your thoughts on Melissa's question?
I was actually just piling on to, what Siobhan said earlier. I think the biggest thing is to really identify for any entrepreneur is what problem you're trying to solve, right? So it has to be a real gap in the market. Because that's what's I think gonna resonate with the investors, with the people. It doesn't have to be a cooked up problem because it exists for us. It really has to be that market gap. So I would double down on that particular one thing for sure. AI definitely from a research perspective, because I think that's my field. I've been in data for a long time, so a lot of research assistant tools are now out there. Perplexity, I would swear down on that for sure when it comes to market research, because I think that is one of the tools that is connected with the real-time data that hallucinates less compared to chat GPTs of the world. So I think if you want to try using that one for a lot of your research, it's going to be really helpful.
Can you say the name of it again? Sorry, Adi.
I'll put that in the chat window. It's
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Perplexity. Yeah.
Thank you. That's really helpful. Thank you both.
And any of the resources that are shared in the chat today, we'll be adding to the Startup Women Resource Guide, which you can access on our website. So even if you feel like it disappears from the chat after this call, you'll be able to access it in the coming days in our resource guide. I want to build on this conversation that we're talking about research and development, and I'm curious from our panelists. So we know that research and development can be one of the most resource intensive phases of building a STEM startup. How do you approach funding and prioritizing research and development, all of those things at once without losing momentum in other areas of your business?
Um, so I'll take a stab at that. And I just want to add something on the previous question. You need to know your numbers. You need to know your numbers, and not just your historic numbers. You need to know your future numbers. And you need to be able to articulate them. They need to look appealing to investors, and they need to be justifiable. And, I meet a lot of founders that are not comfortable with the numbers. And if you're going to go raise investment, you have to get comfortable. And as a CEO, you have to get comfortable with your numbers. That's just a core part of your job, is to know your numbers and to have a good 3-year outlook on what those numbers could be. And in terms of R&D, that's really hard. There's very few investors that are willing to hand over money before you have something. And if you are not a successful exited founder, there's even fewer. Like, the founders and get money with an idea are typically founders that have already had a successful business. And, so they say, hey, I'm starting a new one. And everyone says, yeah, can I throw money at you? But if you haven't had a successful business yet, people want proof points. They want traction. They want evidence. And that's, so getting that early product funding is really, really hard. If you have the right friends and family, this is what's called the friends and family round. When you go to your friends and your family and they give you money because they're your friend or they're your family. If you're doing that, one, you have to have friends and family that can afford to give you, because you don't want to be taking money that they can't really afford to give you. And you have to be thinking about, can I show up for a holiday dinner if my startup went bust? And if you don't feel you could show up for holiday dinner if your startup went bust, you probably shouldn't be taking the money in the first place. So getting the funding for that early R&D, most common approaches, one is you're doing something else that pays the bills. So you're doing a side hustle, trying to figure out the early stages of the product before you quit your job to do it full time. There is sometimes grant money, and depending on what area you're in, you can find grant money. There are people that do pitch competitions and are almost professional pitch competition people in order to get that early stage funding. But it is hard. And the more deep tech your company is, the more that early stage funding you need. If you can get yourself in, if you're in the deep tech space, you want to be able to get yourself to a couple of patents as your proof point. Because if I'm investing in, let's say, a drug or a med tech or, something, I'm not really going to expect you to get to market before I invest, but I am looking for others. So that, market research that we talked about earlier, having that, showing that you've got something unique, with your patents or something else. And there's patent grants, lots of patent grants out there that can help you with that portion.
I actually have a follow-up question for you then, Jennifer. When you're evaluating early stage STEM startups, how much weight do you give to the strength of a founder's research versus their go-to-market strategy?
Both. We give weight to both. If it's just research, you'll get a lot of people saying, I don't really invest in science projects. Right? So you really need to be able to show the market opportunity and that you can get there. There are areas of deep tech and STEM where you will never take it to market. You're going to get acquired. That's particularly true in life sciences and med tech. Many Canadian companies get acquired before they ever get to market. But as a founder, you'll want to know who those potential acquirers are. You'll want to know how you reach them. So your plan might not be your go-to-market plan to customers, but it's your go-to-market plan to the acquirers for your tech. And that can be an attractive, and it's a different pitch if you're pitching an investor to take you to the point that you can get acquired than if you're pitching an investor to take you to the point that you can go to market. I will also say the flip side, if you don't have, real R&D, if you're, two people and you use some AI to create some code and you found a customer to buy your code, and you don't really have anything there that 1,000 other people couldn't also do, you're not likely to get investment because there are a lot of people that are using Claude or something else to create some code and heading off to market in an area that really you don't have sustainable competitive differentiation. So you do need some of that R&D to get that sustainable competitive differentiation, but you also need to get to market.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing. That's very valuable. We have 2 questions in our chat from Tosin and Joan. They're both curious about specifically grants and patent grants. Do any of our panelists have some advice on how to find out about them and access them?
Yeah, so
You
there's
can't see
federal.
my hand, but go ahead.
Oh, yes. Sorry, I didn't see your hand up with your camera off, Siobhan, but if you want to go ahead.
It's okay. Go ahead, Jennifer. Go ahead,
Oh,
Jennifer.
I was just going to say in Ontario, there's IPON, which is an Ontario program, and you can get that through, I think any of the RICs in Ontario will help you get to the right people for IPON. There are also federal grants through NRC, I think they're through NRC, for patents. And those are available across the country, and there may be other programs in specific provinces as well. But I would suggest if you're looking for help with patents that you find your local tech accelerator. And I think everywhere has them now. And they can help you with how to access. But the federal funding did get re-upped just a few months ago. So there is fresh federal funding for patents, and it is a priority for the government.
That's great. And we'll make sure to share those resources in the resource guide after this call as well. So you can everyone can get access to it. Siobhan, was there anything you wanted to add to that?
I was going to say the same thing. IPON has been a really good resource. And you can also get help with that at Toronto Public Library. They have a few different information sessions too. To your local library.
What a great idea.
Yes, use your library.
And I'm not sure how many people are from Nova Scotia, but I'm sure other provinces will have similar thing. But like Invest Nova Scotia, they run program for entrepreneurs, for giving them grants for like attending press conferences or for attending even like events that are happening out of the province. But that is something either for an education purposes or for marketing purposes that you feel are good for your startups. So those kind of grant programs exist as well with some of the local investment options out there in the province.
That's fantastic. Thank you for sharing. Now, before I have one last question before we move on from market research and funding. I'm curious from all of our panelists, how do you know when a product or a technology is ready enough to bring to market or when it needs some further developing and refining?
I'd like to go at it first because I'm an architect by nature and I fall into this trap a lot of times. Primarily because I think we as a woman, we are perfectionist. We are not able to stop us from fixing that one more bug, adding that one more feature, making sure everything is perfect before it's getting served on the table. So I mean that I think comes as a second nature to us, and I think it kind of bites us when we are trying to build a solution. It took me a lot of time. Through mentorship, I got to know difference between a fully productionized solution versus an MVP. We call it as a minimal viable product, right? Which is a good enough solution to take it to market. It may not be, it's a working solution. It fixes a problem that you see. It may not have a very best UI. It may have few pieces which are not completely automated, but it is addressing the gap that you saw in the market. So rather than waiting to fix everything and beautify everything and automate everything, and it's taking months and months of time, and somebody else has already either filled that gap or it's too late, by the time. I think nailing that MVP, how does that look like, and just ship it. It's okay to be embarrassed by feedback that's coming out of the market, because that's always a chance of going on with your next version out there. But yeah, I do feel that I'm honing back to that same thing. If you have identified a problem, and if it is fixing that problem may not be in the best possible way, but in a way, ship that product out, right? At least fill that gap, and then start gathering the signals from the feedback and start working on the future builds. So that's, and now I kind of take care of that same approach when I am designing my own solutions every day.
Great. Thank you, Jennifer.
And I was just going to add to that. Try selling it.
That goes without saying.
And I have certainly talked to founders who, I'll sell it, but I think I just need to add a couple more features before I can sell it. And it's like, maybe you need to add those features, but you haven't asked. So ask.
Mm-hmm.
You've probably got people that are trying the product with you. If you aren't, then you need to get some people trying the product with you. And then ask them, would they pay for this? How much will they pay for this? Will they pay for this right now? Can you get a contract? Ask them. I was talking to a company a couple of weeks ago, and they went all the way through a trial without ever talking about money. And then didn't close after that. And it's like, you have to, talk about money. How much is it worth? And get comfortable talking about money. Because in the end, your business is going to be successful if you can make money. So you have to be willing to talk about it. You have to, as you get a product that you think might be good enough, you have to ask whether people will buy it and try and sell it to them. And you can keep fixing it. You can add things, but it's much easier to add things as you have revenue coming in than without revenue.
That's great. Yeah, get some beta testers, get some people actually using your app or your technology or your software, get their feedback. I think that's great. It's another great way to use your friends and family too, if they don't have investment money, right? You can access those circles. Suli, I see you have your hand up.
I was worried to talk because my English is not perfect, but I'm going to try. When I developed my MVP, I did a lot of numbers, and everything said that I have to develop for WhatsApp because it's very used in Latin America. But when I put in practice, it was a total mistake because it's difficult to do the integration and all the implementation. But what's good that I launched immediately, I finished my MVP. Because in there, I could say no. And I start to listen to people, and the people say, no, start in Instagram. I say, okay, let's do in Instagram. And something good that with AI, before something that you develop in 4 months, now you develop in 1 hour. And I said, let's try in Instagram. In 1 week, I had already in Instagram, and I start to catch more customers for Instagram. They say, and why not in web chat? Let's do in web chat. Soon, I start to develop. And now they start to request more things that are improving my solution, and I am catching more customers now. Yes. The idea is to start fast and start to develop, and the customer help me to detect problems to fix fast. That is good when you start fast. You hear the customers and you improve with the reviews of the customers. I don't know if I explained my idea.
Thank you so much for sharing. I mean, I think that's a great example of, trying something in one place and adapting and also, using different softwares available to you. I actually want to build off of this conversation because and talk a little bit about failure, because failure is an inevitable part of the startup process, right? Whether it's you launched your product and no one wants to use it, or the amount of feedback was overwhelming. For a panelist, how do you build a culture within your startup, or how do you maybe stay sane yourself, and how do you tolerate and learn from failure, especially when you're under the pressure of investor expectations? Sorry, Siobhan, you're a little choppy right now. Maybe I'll see. Addie or Jennifer, do you have any advice on this? Well, maybe
I can
Siobhan
try taking a stab, because
Sure.
so when I look at failure, to me, it's and that's my data geek talking. It's a data point, right? Because it's telling me that what did not work. So if I look at it from the lens of, okay, I tried something, what were the reasons for this particular, I don't know, MVP not working out? So let's look at that market signals. So that tells me what is it that I want to avoid in the future. So I collect that data. I would, put it in the right repository. I'll train my internal AI algorithm to use that and come up with either, a different direction, because that's not the market pulse right now. Or if maybe it was, I need to change my route altogether, like she shared about WhatsApp versus Instagram. So that was like a best example, right? You tried WhatsApp, you thought that's going to work out, didn't, and we instantly changed directions and latched onto the Instagram beat, and it kind of worked. And I think I see it as a very good story to tell the investors as well, because that if you're not punishing failure, and if you're failing early, so if we have that kind of a mindset that fail early and quickly turn the turf around, basically we are telling investors we are saving you money, we are wasting less of the money, because so I would really change the narrative that way.
You're also using examples of showing investors where you listen to your audience base and implemented that
Exactly.
feedback.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think you're going to try a number of things that probably won't work out the way that you expected them to, and that's just normal. And the key is to not spend all your money on things that don't work out, so that you can try other things, right? So if you're doing different experiments, make sure your job as the CEO is not to run out of money. I will also say sometimes your startup will fail, right? In fact, most startups fail. Your startup might be the exception, but most startups fail. Most of my investments will fail. And I think there's a couple of things. One is your investors should know that going in. An educated investor is one that knows that most of their investments aren't going to be successful. As a founder, when you have a failure, I would say a couple of things that you need to do if you want to found a new company is you need to close things off with your investors. Leave things in a good place. I've had founders that I've invested in who failed, who then avoid me like the plague, and all their investors, they're too ashamed or embarrassed or whatever they are, and they won't talk to anybody again. It's like, that's not the right plan. Talk to them, say what you learned. At Capital Angel Network, we just recently invested in a company where the founder's first company had failed. But one of the things that we had him talk about was what went wrong that first time, what he learned from it. And he had good answers around what went wrong and what he learned from it. And, he got investment the second time again. So, it's not the end of the world if you fail, but if you don't manage the relationships of everybody around you, it does make it much more difficult to try again.
Yeah, that's, phenomenal advice. Relationships are everything, and it kind of loops back to the conversation we were having at the beginning of this talk with networking, right? Every person you meet, you never know who's in the room, and keeping those strong relationships can sometimes be the reason why you access funding or success in your startup. Laurel, I see you have your hand up.
Yeah, thank you. And thanks everyone. And I'm really this is such an interesting conversation, and I'm really glad that we're having it. I teach entrepreneurship at Ivy, and so I'm very always aware, trying to be plugged in to ensure my students know where to go for resources and to support them as well. But I also do research with entrepreneurs and with ecosystem actors. And my question is twofold. One is this idea of having to have a trial kind of to demonstrate customer traction, right? It's something that I hear, it's what we say all the time, but I'm wondering how much of that is Canadian centric. And if that is what you founders here would get if we said, go to Silicon Valley. Like if they have such a big idea and they're trying to do an MVP and they have the vision, but they're struggling to access the right customers. I'm just wondering if, especially with medical things like that, is it better to maybe say to some people, you have a better luck in the US, unfortunately, because Canada does have a scarcity mentality and a scarcity problem with finance, and it does affect how we talk about finance and the expectations we have for the companies we invest in. And then the second question I had, and I'm really glad you brought this up, Jennifer, that you reinvested in a male entrepreneur. Do we have the same expectations for female founders, that if they fail, we would be willing to fund them? Because what I'm hearing more and more in the ecosystem is that males feel like failing is something they can come back from, but female founders, I think, are feeling less secure in that. They definitely need to step away. They need to go and rebuild relationships and find themselves before really kind of stuck, if they choose to even go back in that limelight. So, two questions.
Thank you. Siobhan, I see you have your hand up if you want to tackle that first.
Well, I wanted to kind of add on to what Jennifer was saying and then run into that. For me, it's the 3 T's. Train. Can I train them? Are they somebody that you can work with and you can train them? Is it somebody that you can tolerate because their benefits are so much better than what it is, so you can tolerate them, or do you terminate? So I really make that assessment really early on, in terms of what I'm trying to do, and especially if it's a person or if it's a thing. And that kind of helps me in terms of failure. And when you're looking at that realm of failure, it's really an opportunity in disguise. So if we shift our mindset, whereas us women are looking at failure and the guys are saying, okay, I just missed this ball. We just need another one. We need to really get that into our mindset that it's okay to not get it right on the first time. The perfection is not rewarded, it's perseverance.
100%. It looks like Jennifer, you're about to add something.
Yeah, I was just going to add to Laurel's question. I have not had the experience of a failed woman founder trying again. So I can't tell you whether she would be successful, because I haven't had that. And I don't know if it's that the women founders who failed don't try again, or if they're just not in my world yet. But women getting funding is more recent than men getting funding. So, and they get less funding. In terms of, do you need to prove traction in Silicon Valley? I think it depends on who you are. And I will also say, outside of Silicon Valley, the US is very much like Canada. Silicon Valley is the exception. It's not the US as a whole. That's the exception. And Silicon Valley is an exception because there is so much money. So much money. And you can certainly read the stories of founders that got money thrown at them with absolutely nothing. Like the woman, I've forgotten her name, but she left OpenAI, started her own AI platform startup, and got 100 million like right away. So it can be done. Would that be likely to happen in Canada? No. Yeah. So, I mean, traction is in the eye of the beholder, really. And it is, as you said, it's a function of scarcity. Like if you're only able to raise a few 100,000, you need to prove that it can go further. If you can raise 100 million, you can do a lot of stuff, and you can. So really depends. But I think there are definitely Canadian founders who move to the Valley and find it's not easier, because it depends on who you are, and whether you're in a hot industry with a known name, right?
I'm also curious, Samantha, I will get to your question, but to follow up on this conversation, Addie, as someone who's a representative of Women in Tech, you're with Women in Tech Canada, but it is the Maritimes chapter lead. How can an organization like that be a great resource for for entrepreneurs or students like Laurel is coaching, to find that support system within Canada?
So, Amanda, as a woman in tech it's like I said, it's a fairly new initiative in Atlantic. What I am really trying to do is, because there are so many other initiatives running in parallel. There's this Digital Nova Scotia, there is WCA, there is Women in AI, Women in Data. Rather than trying to reinvent the wheel, what I'm really trying to do is partner with all these different initiatives and curate, what is it that's working for them, what are the kind of resources that they are making available to people. So, have that curated set of resources and making sure that the network is aware that those things exist. Because one thing, like Samantha also initially said, it's too much for any entrepreneur, any startup entrepreneur to just do everything, right? And on top of it, adding this another dimension of researching that what are the possible resources I have access to, or I can even use in the first place, that can make my life a little bit easier, right? And I think that's one of the key problems I'm trying to solve here. So with some of the webinars that I'm running, one of them being, I'm talking to a few of the mentors here who know how to run an online branding thing, right? So what are the key things, tips and tricks? How do you increase that online presence? How do you have a LinkedIn profile that people, come and talk to you about? So those kind of webinars, and then things like AI for productivity. So how do you really use all these noisy AI tools to improve some of your backend operations that can give you back that 1 hour in your life, right? So so many things exist, but how do you really make it possible for people to consume that information and use that? That is what I'm trying to do, as at least for initial 6-7 months. And once I make some progress in that area, then I'll see where it goes from there. I'm taking it one step at a time.
Awesome. Well, I'm excited to see the growth and journey. We're almost at time for our networking session, so I'll ask Samantha to ask maybe your question, and then we'll transition shortly.
I don't know if it's so much a question or adding on. I know it's the psychology behind it all that can really trip us up. And I feel like as women, I don't know why, but we seem to sort of fall into our own traps more than men. And I don't know if I don't think it's confidence, because I have a lot of confidence and I know I can drive results. But as soon as I start to see friction or things aren't moving the way that I would like, then I know I have to sort of watch that perfectionism saboteur, because it just kind of is relentless. So like I already know like I can't accept that fact, Jennifer. That's scary as hell. Because I'm like, if I was going to like, if I'm going in, there's no way it's failing. Like that's sort of like my mentality. So I know that if it did fail, I already know that that would take so much mental reframing to come back from. But yet a man would probably just do it and like show up as a different company name tomorrow, right? So I try to stay out of my head and I try to stay connected with coaches and peers that can help me mentally navigate that. But I don't know why, as women, it just seems like we have a lot of mental traps that we can fall in.
Thanks for sharing. I mean, it makes me think of that. There's like an old saying or stat that, men apply for jobs that they're only 60% qualified for, but women apply for jobs that they're 100% or overqualified for. And so it's that, mentality switch of we can and we will. Right. Right before we go into networking, I want to end our question section with one question for a quick round for each of our panelists, for Jennifer, Addie, and Siobhan. Leaving on a positive note, I would love to hear, what is your boldest prediction for women in STEM over the next decade?
That we will take over the world globally and really be the dominant force of what's happening.
I love that.
There's so many women right now that are being right now having.
Siobhan, I think we lost you, but I like the women will rule the world, so we'll take that. Jennifer, Addie, do either of you have any
your way? I are opportunity with the dom.
Okay, I think here I'll pass it to Jennifer, Addie. Do either of you have any predictions for women in STEM over the next decade?
I don't know, maybe I've been in the tech sector for too long. Yeah, I mean, I graduated from university in the 80s with a computer science degree. It's been a long time. I think women, we're coming to a big shift in women holding capital and controlling capital. And that's, I mean, the stats vary depending on whose report you read, but any way you look at it, the amount of capital that women control and will be controlling in the next 10 years is going to be dramatically higher. And I think we're just starting to get women to really understand what you can do with that and how much impact you can have when you control the capital. And I do think that's going to see a big shift coming in terms of women running companies, women, getting proper healthcare, all the various things that, when women control the capital, it just makes so much of a difference in what we can do and the world that we can create for ourselves and our children.
I love that. Thank you. Okay, well, now we're going to head into our breakout rooms. Just give us a few minutes to set them up. And while we set them up, I will go through what is to be expected in these. So these breakout rooms are to provide you with intentional networking with each other. It's sort of like speed dating, as presumably you're all working in the STEM space. So please use this time to get to know one another. Perhaps there's someone in the room that can help you with a roadblock you're currently facing, or they could provide you with an introduction to someone. We do ask that everyone gets a chance to speak and that you're respectful of everyone in the room. And we will stop recording so these conversations can be completely private. We'll do 3 rounds of breakout rooms for 10 to 12 minutes each. And some of the rooms, you'll have speakers in there with you. So this is just being set up right now. You'll receive an invite in a minute to join a breakout room, and you can just go ahead and join that room.